Hello, everyone. Welcome to Science Buffs, the ultimate podcast for STEM enthusiasts. I'm Abby,
And I'm Sam.
and welcome to the podcast, everyone. So, we're going to kick it off, dive right into it, and let's go into a little weekly recap. Sam, did you do anything fun this week?
You know that I did not do much fun this week.
We may have talked a little bit
I,
offline about
yeah,
if we did anything this week.
but I did tell you that I started the Lessons in Chemistry book, and
Yes.
I know you've read it, and it sounds like it aligns so far with some topics that we could probably talk about on the show. So,
Definitely. They talk a lot of actual scientific stuff in there, or like they kind of go into detail on the actual chemical stuff. So,
yeah, I need to watch this show too. So,
how far are
apparently
you in the book?
I'm like 30 pages in.
What are your initial thoughts?
I think it's really good. I had my sometimes these books recently are way overhyped, and so I
Yeah.
kind of had my doubts because I there were a couple of books I picked up that were super popular and hot right now, and I wasn't crazy about them. But so I was hoping that this one wouldn't be. I bought this one at Costco, so I was like, maybe this is overhyped, but I think it's really good so
No,
far.
I feel like I don't like fiction really at all usually. And
Yeah,
actually really liked this book. And it was a fine line of, well, I don't know. Some people have mixed thoughts about the main character. So we'll see if you end up liking her because she's like very sometimes annoying. But overall, I really enjoy the book. But
okay.
yeah, some of these
Well,
ones that
well,
are popular now are so overhyped. My book club read Finley Donovan is killing it, and I couldn't
I think
even
I've
get
heard of
through it.
that.
It's not scientific in any way or anything, but it's just like everyone was talking about it for a while, and then everyone at the book club was like, "This is the cutest book ever," and I was like, I quit at 25%. But I think you'll
That's the
like
hard thing about a
lessons in
book club.
chemistry. Yeah,
Yeah, it could either be really good. And then if you have to recommend something and probably haven't read it, so
right. And then if it flops, that is not great. But I'm interested to see the
yeah.
show because the author, I guess, was saying that it's a little bit different than what she um envisioned, like parts of it. Because
Yes.
have you met 630 the dog yet?
No.
Okay, well, then never mind. I mean, there's a dog, but you'll see why you can't exactly.
Wait, does the dog die?
I don't remember the plot very much of the book. I don't think so.
Okay. I can't read books when
Mm,
dogs die, but that's all right.
that I don't. I hope I'm not leading you astray. I don't think so. But you couldn't really. I'm just saying you can't really have a dog exactly like the dog in 630 for reasons that you will see.
Okay, okay.
Uh, because you kind of like know his thoughts. So anyway, but the author was like, I'm just letting go of any changes that they make.
That's
So
good. I mean, that could be good or bad,
I
but
think it's a good attitude to have because she has like no control at this point, I don't think.
that's true.
But
All right, what was your week like?
I saw the Taylor Swift movie this weekend. It
How was
was
that?
it
You're a
was
medium Swiftie,
yeah,
so
I'm super mild Swifty, but it was amazing actually. I really liked it. And I also so I don't know your thoughts about standing up in a movie theater.
oh, I have thoughts. No, I'm just kidding.
So like I saw the One Direction concert in theaters back when it came out, and like everyone in the theater was standing up and like jumping and singing, and it was very lively. So I was expecting with these like crazy Taylor Swift fans that they would stand for sure. Like I was prepared and I was gonna really get into it. And then like a bunch of people didn't stand. Like probably over half the theater never stood.
Really? That
Yeah,
actually really surprises me.
I know. I was like, because I'm a
Did you
mild Swiftie,
stand?
but
Were
if
you a
I'm
stander?
going, yeah, because the people behind me stood. So I felt fine standing. But I didn't
You're
want to be
following
someone
my
like getting ripped on in a TikTok of like standing and being rude. But I was like, well, these people are standing, so I'll stand.
I think I would stand.
Okay,
I
people are like
I'm a Swiftie
sitting
though.
to shake it off. And I was like, why are you sitting?
That sounds really boring just to sit and listen to music, but I guess some people like to do that.
But it was funny because yeah, it's like she cut out like 5 songs, I think, from the actual concert
Long Live,
to the
I heard.
movie.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, I know they put
I
that
would
in the
be upset.
credits. Guess what else they
Okay.
cut?
What?
Wildest Dreams.
You love that song.
That is my favorite song. And I had the set list pulled up on my phone because also when you're in a concert one, phones are all of a sudden acceptable. So everyone's texting like on their phone and everything. So I pulled up the set list in order and I was like nudging my cousin, like, oh my gosh, the next song is 1989 or it's Wildest Dreams. Like, this is
Wildest
the
Dreams.
1989 era. Oh my gosh. And then it went right to the next era. And I was crushed. So
That's
sad.
heartbreaking.
And then she
That's
did the
really
same thing
sad.
to me, like in the Lover era, they cut out the Archer, which I don't even really know, but
Oh, everyone loves that song too.
she
That was a
loves
big
that
deal.
song and she's like, oh my gosh, this one's amazing. And then it cuts to the next era. She's like, well, never mind. But I was exhausted after 3 hours and she does that every
You
single
texted
night
me
and
at
my voice was
you
gone.
texted me yeah, you texted me at like 11 and said that you're like it's still going.
Yeah. I it was insane. Like I came out and I was like, that was a great show. My voice is all hoarse. I'm exhausted. And Taylor's just out here doing that every single night. So it was a really good show.
No. I think there has to be clones of her because
I
there's no
know.
way.
I don't really get how it's possible. She
She
must
has to be
not
like an
talk all
Olympian.
day or yeah, like what the movie I want to see is her is like a behind the scenes of this tour because I want to see what she's
Yes.
eating, how she's working out, like
You know she
what
won't show
voice
any of that
stuff.
though.
Why?
I think because of body positivity and things like that, she won't.
But
She,
that's body positive. It's health.
I don't know.
It's so
I just
strong. Like
feel
you can
like
tell her
she
legs are like
won't.
strong.
Yeah, I feel like she won't show that, but
Ugh.
we can
Like I
we
want to
could bet
see
some money on it.
what she drinks, like calm, voice soothing tea and stuff. Like, I
Well,
don't
that's
get
like
how her
Selena
voice isn't
Gomez.
gone.
Selena Gomez drinks olive oil before she
Yeah.
sings
See, that's
or
the stuff
something
I
like
want to
that.
know. That's what I want to see. So if that comes out, I'll be there. But anyway, and then
Yes.
the other thing that we just have to bring up since we are buffs is that CU had a terrible loss this
Yeah, they even
this
made fun of
last
it on
week.
Saturday Night Live, which I never thought I would see Kenan Thompson in CU gear, but that was
Ugh.
kind of cool. At the same time, they were making fun of how bad we were. So,
Yeah, we were well, I mean, we're better than last year at least, but we were up by like 29, I think. I was in the Taylor Swift movie looking at the score since phones were acceptable. And I was like, oh good, we're up like 29-0. And then the next time we checked, it was like 29-26. And then I went to bed thinking like it was on edge. And then I woke up and all had fallen apart and it was all a mess. So sad
yeah,
day.
in SNL, you should watch this. Did you watch the skit I sent you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Deion Sanders, they said Kenan Thompson as Deion Sanders said he went home because they were up 29 nothing, took a nap and woke up and they had lost.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
That seems about right. But anyway, we're recording this a week in advance, so there's another game that I think will happen this weekend, but I don't know.
Yeah.
It was crushing. But anyway, let's get into
All
the
right.
topic. Give me
All
your
right, I'm
clues.
presenting this week. All right. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. My first clue is you may hate this topic
Oh,
because I know you, but it
awesome.
fits in with Halloween.
Okay. Okay.
All right, I'll give you the second one because that's pretty big. And it has to do with human biology.
Like a face transplant or something.
No.
I wouldn't hate that topic. Okay, what would he maybe hate?
You won't hate it, but it's not your favorite thing. Think, okay, my final one, which probably won't give you that many clues either, but it has to do with true crime. So it's in a lot
Hmm.
of my favorite cop shows.
Like forensics or something? Is it just generally
Yes.
forensics? Oh, cool. Okay.
Well, specifically forensic DNA analysis.
Oh, let's go. Oh yeah, this is gonna be
Yeah.
sweet. I was just talking about this with someone, like about taking a forensics class in high school, how like they would
Yes.
analyze the different DNA and such.
They had that at your high school?
Yeah, they did. I never took it, but apparently that's like a new thing that they're really starting to implement now.
I would have loved that. So I chose this topic because, unlike Abby, I listen to a ton of true crime.
I don't know
And
how you do.
I've always loved cop shows, starting probably with NCIS when I was growing up, which they're still making, I'm pretty sure. It's going on for a
I'm
super long
pretty,
time.
yeah.
But they had this character who worked in the lab, in their forensic lab, named Abby.
Let's go.
And she was awesome. And she would like solve all the crimes. Like
Okay.
they didn't need anybody else. They just needed Abby.
Well, I like this
Um,
topic already.
so yes, so I've always been really interested in DNA analysis. So what do you know about forensic DNA analysis, Abs?
Um, Basically that they can just match, I don't know, DNA at a scene. Okay, well, I guess the most recent one that was interesting was like they caught some killer by using the DNA fragments of like his relative from a pizza box. Did you hear about that one?
Yes, we will be talking about that.
Okay, good. That's like, yeah, I am interested in it
The
because like
Golden
all
State
this
Killer.
yes, the Golden State Killer. The like all the 23andMe stuff with the DNA is like helping to solve all these crimes. But I don't know a ton of
Yes.
specifics about how it all works.
Okay.
So
That's actually pretty good. That's
let's
good.
go.
All right. So we're gonna dive in.
Yes, okay.
So do you actually, last question, do you know what DNA stands for?
Dinucleotide something or something. I don't know. I don't know.
That's closer than I would have gotten. It's deoxyribonucleic acid.
Oh, yes.
Yes,
Never would
and
I have strung those syllables together though.
I had to look up how to pronounce it because I wasn't sure. Which is funny for how much I've heard it in cop shows. I've never been wondering what DNA stands for.
Right. Yeah, I knew
So,
there was a nucleus something in there.
nuclei. Yes, deoxyribonucleic acid. So,
Okay.
DNA is code which essentially carries the instructions for your bodily makeup. It's the genetic material of a cell.
Okay.
One interesting fact is that 99.9% of your DNA is the exact same as everybody else's. It's 0.10% of the human genomes varies from person to person.
Dang, that's cool.
Yeah, so the chromosomes inside of the nucleus of the cell are made of DNA, and it's so tightly coiled that there can be as much as 1 meter of DNA within a single cell, which I think is crazy.
Whoa, that is actually nuts.
Yeah, so chromosomes contain markers, and markers are points that repeat short DNA sequences over and over again. And how many times a sequence repeats each marker varies depending on the person. So every person has 2 copies of each marker, one from your mother's side and one from your father's side.
Okay.
So we're going to get into this a little bit more later, but forensic scientists use these short random repeats, is what they call them, of DNA to identify individuals.
Hmm.
And we're going to talk about that a little bit later.
Okay, that's cool.
But hold on, I have to adjust my foot.
Get
Okay. All right.
yourself
So
comfy.
get yourself comfy. Okay. So I think the history of DNA is really interesting, the DNA fingerprinting. So when do you think DNA fingerprinting was first like discovered
What's the
or
difference
invented?
between DNA fingerprinting and just like fingerprinting? Is DNA
DNA,
fingerprinting just, sorry, go ahead. I asked a
no,
question.
that's okay. DNA fingerprinting is essentially that it's the recognition that each person has specific unique DNA portions
Okay,
to
okay,
themselves. Yeah.
gotcha. Okay, DNA
Yeah.
fingerprinting. Well, it wasn't, I feel like it was more recent than I thought because I heard something about like some case that was clearly, was it the OJ Simpson trial? Did they use DNA in the OJ Simpson trial? I'm gonna guess the
No.
60s they started using
It's
it.
actually, so you're right about more recent than you
than you'd
thought
think.
or think. So in 1984,
Okay.
um, yes,
And
Sir
what year
Alex,
was O.J. Simpson?
90s, right?
I think 90s. Yeah, you're right. Okay, so they used it.
I don't know if they use, yeah, I'm sure they did. Something about the glove, I don't know.
We're so out of
Some
touch
glove.
with O.J. Simpson. I feel like, yeah, okay. Something
That's
about the glove.
embarrassing because I said that I listen to a lot of true crime, which I do, but a lot of
That
the
was
true
like
crime I listen
overdone,
to,
That
yeah,
one's just a
exactly.
classic. People aren't recapping that one.
Yeah, so okay. So in 1984, Sir Alec Jeffreys, he's a British geneticist. He worked in a laboratory at the University of Leicester in England. I really hope I said that correctly. And he noticed while looking at an X-ray film of two different people within his lab technician's family, that there were unexpected differences as well as similarities in their DNA. So he quickly realized the potential usefulness in utilizing what's coined DNA fingerprinting to identify individuals based on variations in their DNA.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was first used about a year later in criminology for the first time, but it wasn't used to solve murders immediately. It was used in the legal system to resolve immigration cases.
Hmm.
So, for example, the first time that it was used in criminology, they confirmed the family identity of a British boy whose family was originally from Ghana. So I believe he left the country um,
Huh.
and
Okay.
had a issue with his passport or something coming back. So they had to essentially confirm that he was actually a member of their family to
Oh,
come back into
okay.
the US.
Interesting.
Yeah. So after Sir Alec Jeffreys discovered it 2 years later, it was first used in police forensics. This is my favorite story. It's really interesting.
Okay.
So, two teenagers had been murdered in Leicestershire, England in 1983, and then the second was in 1986. And there were some similarities between each cases. So the police assumed that there was one perpetrator.
Okay.
They had one suspect in custody named Richard Buckland, and he confessed to the second murder, but he would not confess to the first murder. So the police asked Sir Alec Jeffreys to complete DNA profiling on a blood specimen that was collected from the suspect, the Richard Buckland guy, and a sample that they had from the two victims of the perpetrator. So DNA profiling revealing that the sample retrieved from both victims was identical, so they
Hmm.
were correct. One perpetrator.
Oh, okay.
Um, Plot twist. Prepare
He
yourself.
didn't murder either one of them.
He didn't do it. He didn't murder
What?
either one
So
of
he
them.
can,
He gave a
but he
false
confessed to
confession.
the,
Yeah.
oh wow. That's a, false confessions are crazy.
Yes. So he was probably anticipated to be the first person convicted of a crime with DNA evidence, but he was actually the first person cleared of a crime because of
Wow.
DNA evidence.
That's cool.
So who was the perp, right? So all who was the perp? So all adult men who lived in the area were asked to give blood samples for DNA testing, which was about 5,000 men. And they first just determined if their blood type matched the specimen of the perpetrator. So that was about 10% of them. So about 500 of the men actually they went through with full DNA fingerprinting profiling on them. No match. So about 6 months after this, a woman reported overhearing a man who had claimed to have given his blood to the police on the behalf of somebody else named
Oh,
Colin Pitchfork. Pitchfork was apprehended. They took his
pitchfork.
DNA, and he was convicted of both murders.
Wow, that totally makes
So,
sense that like the murderer wouldn't just be freely giving over his blood for
yep.
DNA. Like they really thought everyone was going to be playing by the rules.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, honestly, that
Wow, that's
timeline is pretty
crazy.
quick. Yeah, 6 months later, they were able to solve it. So,
And how
um,
far apart were the murders again? Like a couple years, right?
3 years apart,
Okay.
1983 and 1986.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
So,
crazy. That's
yeah.
cool. I'm glad the
So
first guy got acquitted.
yeah, me too. Yeah, that brings up a whole can of worms, false confessions. But
Yeah.
so what is DNA profiling? So there's essentially 5 steps. So the first one is procure a sample, right?
Hmm.
You only need a small number of cells, so it can be skin, hair, blood, saliva, anything else.
Okay.
Um, you the second step is to extract the DNA from the sample and then you copy it. So when I was doing my research, they call it the Xeroxing of like DNA, basically.
Okay.
Then you separate the copied markers using a process called capillary electrophoresis, I think is how you say it. But essentially, it allows the scientists to identify distinct markers, the markers we talked about previously, and the number of repeats for different markers.
Do they just copy
And then
it so that they can like do all this separating without destroying the original evidence or something?
I think twofold, like I think that is one of the purposes, but also I think it makes it easier once they actually get to the imaging of it,
Okay.
once they have more copies, but I'm not quite sure.
Okay.
That's a good question, why they do the Xeroxing.
I would imagine they
Um,
want to keep that evidence like on file or something and probably destroys it if you're ripping it apart to
yes,
find the markers or something.
I have heard before of them like having really small samples of DNA and then certain testing will like destroy the sample. And so they get really nervous about the testing that they allow on specific
Right. That
samples.
makes
But
sense.
yeah, that's a good question. And yeah, this topic is definitely more out of my comfort zone because I don't think I ever took a biology class except in high school.
That is
But
crazy they can get, you were saying it was so tightly wound that like a meter fits in a single cell. That is
yeah,
crazy that we have the tooling to like go and find subsets of things in that's so small. How do we how do
I
we have
know.
that
I
available?
just remember in high school in like a my biology class, and I never really understood it, but we had to take the DNA out of a strawberry.
What?
Like we actually were able to do that in my high school class. But
Really?
I'm gonna have to look this up. I'll look it up and post it on stories how you
Okay.
actually do it because I clearly remember this day
That's
because I thought
crazy.
it I was very confused because we took the DNA out, but then I was like, it's so big. Why can I actually see it? Like you shouldn't be able to see DNA.
You were just taking out seeds the whole time and they're like, this is the DNA.
Probably.
So
All
advanced.
right. So after we do that, then you can read the data using a chart called an electropherogram, and I'll post a picture of that in stories too. It's really
Okay.
cool. But it's essentially like plotting out what your DNA looks like. And it shows how many repeats there are for each marker and when they occur.
Okay.
Based on this chart, so step 5, you essentially generate a DNA profile for a person, and it consists of a simple list of numbers indicating how many there are per repeat units there are in each allele of 20 marker points. So, like, they have specific markers that they look for, essentially.
Okay.
And then they put it in this database called CODIS, which, if you watch True Crime or any police thing ever, they always talk about CODIS, which is the Combined DNA Index System, and it's a database of DNA profiles. And there's currently 13 to 15 million profiles in CODIS, which is crazy.
Wow. So do they put you in there if you do like 23andMe?
We're talking about that later.
Oh, scary. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So we will, yes, I have a big discussion question later.
Okay, great. Can't
Yeah.
wait.
Okay. So history, big cases solved. I picked 2. There's obviously been many. The first one that you mentioned earlier was the Golden State Killer conviction. So in 2018, James D'Angelo was arrested and charged with 13 counts of murder linked to previously unsolved cold cases as far back as 1974. Um, the investigators used public genealogy databases to match data obtained from their victims' relatives, and they eventually linked those crimes to him, and he was sentenced to life in prison. This other one is kind of interesting. I took a step out of criminology, and you
Okay.
should remember this because we both watched The Crown. We've watched
Ah,
all The Crown.
yes.
And do you have any idea what episode I might be talking about?
Okay. No.
Okay. So,
Wait, I
in
feel like I should. Oh, I'm gonna know as soon as you mention it, I feel like, but
all right. So, in 1991, scientists were able to prove that the skeletal remains found in a burial pit in
oh,
850 miles east of Moscow, Russia, were those of the Russia's last Tsar Nicholas II and his family.
okay, I was gonna
They
say
have
this
been,
one, but I was like, this is from a foreign country, so I don't know if it was gonna be, I don't know.
yeah,
Okay,
nope,
I know
this
what
is
you're talking
it.
about. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, they had been killed in 1918 during the Russian Civil War. And matches were made with samples taken from several living family members,
Mhm.
including the Duke of Edinburgh,
Yes,
Queen
okay.
Elizabeth's husband. So, and they did a whole episode on this in The Crown.
Yeah,
It's
that
really
was
interesting.
honestly a terrible episode, and I thought about it for much too long afterwards. That was horrible.
Yeah, skip the beginning if you have a light stomach. But they do take his like DNA and they show how they were able
Right.
to confirm. It's kind of interesting.
And what year was that,
So,
did you say?
1991.
Okay. That's, yeah. Ugh, gives me chills. That episode.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
good.
not good. Um, okay, so I did want to have a discussion because I'm interested in hearing about it. And I didn't research as detailed as I wanted to, but I wanted to know what your thoughts are on allowing law enforcement to use like genealogical data online websites to solve crime. One disclaimer though is that like ancestry.com and 23andme, they don't just like they're not just open to law enforcement. The law
Okay.
enforcement has to have like a waiver or sorry, a warrant. And even then, I don't think that they're required to comply. So there are some open websites. Um, I they were like GE something. I wrote it down now. I forget. It was there's a couple that you do that you probably haven't heard of before that law enforcement can just use.
I
Um,
don't I don't love it, but I don't know if I can articulate why. Like it just creeps me out a little that like people can go in and just access your DNA. But it's like for a
yeah,
good cause. Like you want killers to be convicted, obviously. But I mean, it's a little bit of a slippery slope. Like, can they just start doing this with minor crimes or something? Like what's the
yeah.
threshold?
I don't know. I mean, the fact that they have to have a warrant is good. I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
important. So it's not just
Well,
like
yeah, at the bare
your DNA is
minimum.
feeding into CODIS. Yeah.
I still don't
So
love that. Like, that's part of the reason why I haven't wanted to do a 23andMe because I feel like it's just, I don't know if I want other people having my DNA,
yeah, but
but I want to know what I am, you know?
yeah, well, 23andMe specifically, if you go to their website and ancestry.com, they do not provide anything to law enforcement without a
Even,
warrant.
yeah, but see, what if they're like, couldn't they just kind of, I mean, that would be rolling into like a dark time in the country, I think, if they were just kind of like handing out warrants for everyone's DNA. But like,
Yeah, I mean, to catch a serial killer like the Golden State Killer totally makes sense to me. I would give DNA for that. Um, but I don't think that law enforcement is out there like who's
yeah, I'm
related to
sure
this
they're
person that shoplifted a lipstick or something,
right.
you know?
I'd be more inclined to just be like, hey, well, would that work? Like, use your family tree. But I guess it tells you really nothing. Like, law enforcement can see my family tree, but that doesn't help them. I guess it would have to be
And
DNA.
that's like a qualitative instead of quantitative. Like if they can be quantitative with their analysis and like know for a fact that this person is
But,
related.
the story of of you saying like 5,000 men or whatever had to just give their blood to the police because these people got murdered. I'd be like, no.
Yeah,
I
I don't know
didn't.
how that I don't know how they convinced I didn't see anything on like how they convinced people in
Probably because,
1970
yeah,
something
I
to
don't
give
know.
all
I
their
feel like that would be a
thing.
tough sell here. Like, hey,
Yeah.
everyone, just, give us all your DNA. We'll track you forever and maybe we'll arrest you. Like,
Yeah.
I
Or like
mean,
what if you give your DNA like at our age or something, and then you
yeah,
have a kid that is a criminal, but you
right.
don't want to be associated with them or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's just implications beyond what may come to mind at first of like,
Yeah.
hey, I don't want you having my DNA in your system the whole time. Like, but I know because we did it was, yeah, ancestry.com, I think, for Jason a couple of years ago. And it's really interesting, but I there's a thing that says like we'll keep your records for like this amount of time and then we'll like destroy you can opt into, I think, removing your DNA from their like database or like the physical sample or something where they'll remove it
Yeah.
or destroy it or something, which I like that you can just say, hey,
Yeah.
because I only want to know it from me. I don't know.
I think for a
It's
lot
an
of
interesting
these
question though.
websites, you also have to, when you set up your profile, you have to say like can be used or can't be
Right,
used.
right.
So at least there's that. But
Yeah, that
I'd be
seems
interested in learning more about because about the laws around that. Because I wonder if,
right.
when these genealogical websites came out in the first place, that those laws and probably didn't exist
Yeah.
because it was a new technology.
I feel like
So they've had to
these
adjust over time.
websites are just opening up like all these cans of worms for I mean for this like the criminal stuff is one thing, but then also like have you heard about that story where the fertility doctor was like swapping out all the sperm or something with his own. And so everyone in this town is basically related who had fertility problems. Like
Oh my
people started getting their DNA tested and then saying like you have 100 half siblings. And they're like, what? This must be some sort of mistake. And they're all from this one town. And they tracked it back to this doctor who had, and there were no laws really for it because like the fertility process was new. This DNA stuff was new, so that he never thought that he would get caught. But there were no real laws surrounding it. But like everyone in this town, they had been like dating each other and stuff, and they were all like half siblings.
What?
Yeah, we'll have to
This
link it in
sounds
the
like a Black
stories.
Mirror episode or something.
It's crazy. Like if you read the whole story,
Also,
it's just
why? Just
terrible.
why?
He was like a psychopath. He had some sort of like mental issue and just was like, I will, do all this. And then people are
Yeah,
finding out like they're adopted and all these families have all this drama because of, these
that's
ancestry sites and
crazy.
stuff. I feel like there's a lot of unintended consequences.
That's
So
crazy.
yeah, I'll have to link the story for sure.
Yeah, DNA is crazy, and I want to do like a 23andMe because my dad is not really sure where his family like originated from at
Oh,
all.
right.
So, yeah, so I think that would be super interesting, and I've always wanted to do that.
You know what's
Which
also
I
weird
just
is
learned.
what?
Did you know that you can get 23andMe using your FSA or HSA
No.
money?
Interesting.
I just learned that.
Huh. You
So
should do
fun
that.
fact, anyone out there is interested.
Well, so my husband's keeps like changing. I think now it's stabilized, but like when he first
It's
got it,
changing.
literally they're like, okay, you're this percent English, this percent, whatever. They gave us the whole breakdown. And then I checked like 3 months later and like new categories had been added, the percentages had changed. Like we got some more data and you're actually like Greek.
Are you using different brands of the tests?
No, it's like we didn't even retest. They just save the
Oh,
sample for longer. And then, like, as more people test, I guess it can refine the results or something. And so they're like,
that's interesting.
actually, you have this new category. You're part Russian. Like, and
That's
I don't
interesting.
know. It's so now I'm like, how much do I trust this? If it's
Yeah, that's
changing, and it changed kind of drastically, but
interesting.
now it's leveled out. So I don't know.
Yeah. I've heard people not happy with dog ones, that they feel like the
I
dog
think
ones aren't
those are fake.
accurate.
I think they're
Yeah.
fake. Like they're tiny little dogs. They're like pit bull.
I'd be interested if I tested my purebred like Great
You
Dane
should.
and
You
see
should.
what it says.
Yeah, and you should do both. You should test
They're probably
Bernie
like
and
part
Range.
alien.
Yeah, they're like
Yeah,
pit bull
Pitbull.
on
He's actually a
Ranger.
Chihuahua, which it would make sense because he wants to be small and he's afraid of
Oh my
everything.
God, he's so cute. But yeah, he is afraid of everything. Maybe he does have a little chihuahua in there. Well, that's a good
Yeah.
topic. I like it. Do you have any
Thanks for
other
learning about.
research?
No, no other research. That's what I got for you today.
I
But
like it. Oh, wait,
yeah, you
so
could.
so would you check that you would allow your DNA to be used by law enforcement?
I think that I would because I listen to a lot of podcasts. Shout out to Crime Junkie, The Deck, all these podcasts. A lot of them about actually one I listened to today on The Deck, they specifically talk about unsolved cases. And they interview the principal investigators. And this the very last thing he said was if you have tested your DNA, you can please upload it into there's a couple databases that law enforcement does have access to. So they specifically asked, like kind of pleaded for that to help solve crimes. I think I would just out of like curiosity. I don't
Yeah,
know,
just in case one of your
but
family members murders someone.
I assume good intentions, but maybe that's not good
Maybe it'll
to do.
clear them. Actually, you know what? It could clear their name.
Yeah, like the first guy that they were
Right.
gonna
That's a
try to
good,
pin down,
yeah,
cleared
that's
him.
solid. Yeah. All right. Well,
So I think I would do it,
good
but
point. Good point. I'm checking
I
no.
don't
I'm
know.
still checking no.
Checking now. Got
No one
one
needs to
no,
know
one
my
yes.
DNA.
We'll do a poll on
Oh,
our
yeah, yeah, yeah.
page and see where
Perfect.
people lie.
Everyone can be the tiebreaker.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that was a good topic. I like it.
That just reminded me of the George Strait song, Check Yes or No.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, link that in stories too. It's part of the poll. All right. Well, thank you all for listening to this episode of Science Buffs. Make sure to rate and review the podcast wherever you're listening. Follow along. Follow us on Instagram at Science Buffs Pod. And we're on all platforms, so just go find us there, Science Buffs. And we'll see you next week for another episode. Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.